She said it was a girls' trip, but she left me for another man's baby. Now, she regrets everything.
Mary told me she was going on some innocent girls' trip. Turns out, she flew off to start a secret family with another dude. Now she's standing at my door begging for forgiveness. But trust me, she got the closure she earned. Mary and I had been together for a solid 4 years, married that whole time. I honestly believed we were good. Like, really good. We had this whole future sketched out. Careers, a house, vacations, and yeah, kids. We used to talk about it all the time. What we'd name them, how we'd paint the nursery, even down to the brand of stroller we'd get. She'd spend hours scrolling through baby clothes online, obsessing over tiny socks and cribs like it was her full-time job. Planning our future was kind of our thing. It brought us closer. It made everything feel real. So, yeah, I was all in. I was ready. I thought she was too.
Then life slapped me in the face. After months of trying, with no little test stick turning pink, we went to see a doctor. I was nervous, but still hopeful. That hope died real fast. Turns out, I was the problem. My numbers were way off, like embarrassingly low. The doc basically said we had next to no shot of having a kid naturally. It hit like getting sucker punched in the chest. I felt useless. Everything we dreamed about, gone in a blink. That news wrecked me. Like, truly wrecked me. I spiraled for a while. Therapy helped later on, but in the beginning, I was a complete disaster. At first, Mary played the supportive wife, told me it didn't matter, that we'd be okay, just the two of us. But even then, I could tell something was off. She dropped the whole family thing way too fast. One minute, she was practically building Pinterest boards for nurseries. Next minute, she's acting like being child-free was her dream all along. Look, I get that people change their minds. I do. But the shift in her felt weird, off, cold. She went from giggling over baby names to avoiding the topic like it physically hurt to say crib. And it wasn't just the silence. It was how she started looking at me. Like I wasn't the same guy anymore. Like less. She'd throw out these little jabs, stuff she'd never said before. Snide comments about how I was letting myself go, how maybe I should hit the gym more or do something useful around the house. And yeah, I'd gained a few pounds, but damn, it felt like she was looking for reasons to blame me for the entire situation. I brought it up, asked her what was going on, why the sudden ice in her voice. She gaslit the hell out of me, said I was being dramatic, sensitive, that nothing was wrong. But something was definitely wrong. The Mary I married, the one who'd talk for hours with me about names and dreams and futures, she was gone. What I had now was someone colder, checked out, emotionally AWOL. And over time, I guess I started lying to myself just to keep the peace. I stopped pushing. I didn't want to look desperate, or worse, weak. Fast forward a few years, and we weren't really living anymore. We were just surviving. Just two bodies orbiting the same space. No deep talks, no sparks, no real connection. It was like we were roommates, pretending to be a married couple. I tried to reignite something, suggested adoption, even brought up surrogacy. But every single time, Mary shut it down. "It's okay, Will," she'd say. "I'm happy as long as we're together." But I didn't buy that for a second. It sounded more like she was trying to convince herself than me. Like she had already made peace with a life she didn't want and expected me to play along. Then one day, out of nowhere, she drops this casual bomb. "I'm thinking of doing a girls' trip."
Now, it wasn't totally out of the blue. She'd gone on friend getaways before, and I always encouraged it. We were living out in Oregon at the time, and she told me she and her friends wanted to fly to the East Coast, New York or maybe DC, for a long weekend. Sounded harmless? I didn't question it. We'd built up years of trust. At least, I thought we had. I even helped her pack, made sure she had snacks and chargers and all that stuff, then drove her to the airport myself. Right before she walked into the terminal, she turned to me and said, "Thank you for being so supportive." I remember thinking, that's a weird thing to say. It wasn't like I'd done anything amazing, but her voice sounded so sincere that I just chalked it up to her being sentimental. That night, I stayed up. Her flight was supposed to be around 9 hours, so I figured I'd wait, call her after she landed, just to make sure she got there okay. When I saw her flight had touched down, I gave her a ring. It rang and rang and rang. No answer. No big deal, I thought. Jet lag, maybe? She probably passed out at the hotel. But then morning hit. Still nothing. I texted. I called again and again. Hours passed. Not a single response. That tight, awful feeling started crawling into my stomach, like something was really wrong. So I called her sister, thinking maybe she'd heard from Mary. Nothing. That's when the panic really set in. I even started calling her friends, the ones she said she was traveling with. I figured maybe her phone died, or maybe something happened and she just hadn't gotten a chance to check in. But when I got one of them on the phone, she sounded confused. "I thought Mary was with you guys," I said. And she goes, no, we're literally at a coffee shop 2 blocks from your house." That's when the floor dropped out from under me. Mary wasn't on any damn trip. She wasn't sipping cocktails with Nancy or walking Times Square or anything like that. She wasn't with anyone. She just vanished. I sat there, phone in my hand, heart pounding like I'd just been stabbed. My brain refused to accept it. Why would she do this? Why lie to my face and disappear like that? I tried so hard to rationalize it. Maybe she missed a connection. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe she'd call me in an hour and everything would make sense. But deep down, I knew. That girl's trip was never real. That sweet little "thanks for being so supportive" at the airport, that was part of the script she'd written in her head. She had this whole damn thing planned, and I was the idiot holding the bag. I sat in silence, trying to breathe, trying not to scream. It felt like I'd been dropped into some sick parallel universe. This wasn't Mary. This wasn't the woman I married, the one who used to dream about cribs and kids and futures with me. No, this was someone else entirely.
And suddenly, all the weird little moments, all the red flags I'd brushed off, the coldness, the way she'd stopped talking about anything real, those digs about my weight, my energy, my worth, they all clicked. And I realized she'd been slipping away from me for a long time. I just refused to see it. Or maybe I saw it and chose not to believe it. That night, I sat on the couch, phone clutched in my hand like some lifeline, staring at the screen, praying for a call, or even a damn text. Anything. But nothing came. And deep down, I knew it wouldn't. I remember waking up the next morning and just lying there, staring at the ceiling in total disbelief. Her side of the bed was ice cold, empty. She was really gone. Mary had packed her things and vanished, just walked out of our life like it meant nothing. All the mental gymnastics I'd done the night before, maybe her flight got delayed, maybe her phone died, none of it held up in the daylight. She'd planned this. She wanted out. The first few days were a blur. I was drowning in denial. I kept calling her phone, hoping she'd pick up, praying she'd say something, anything that would make it make sense. I left messages. So many messages. Half the time, I didn't even know what I was saying. I just kept talking like somehow my voice could pull her back. But all I got was silence. And that silence, it was louder than any scream. It told me everything I needed to know. She didn't just leave. She cut me off. Like I was some chapter she'd finished. And the worst part? I had no idea why. I had no idea why.
At first, even her family was blindsided. Her mom, Linda, had no clue this was coming. Said she hadn't heard a single word about a trip, or anything really. I ended up at her parents' house more times than I can count, sitting in their kitchen, asking the same questions over and over like a broken record, looking for answers they couldn't give me. I think Linda, Mary's mom, honestly just felt sorry for me. She let me crash on their couch a few nights when I couldn't face being alone in our place. She'd even make me food because I couldn't bring myself to touch a stove. She'd just sit there with me, letting me ramble about all the nonsense details, little moments that didn't add up, things I should have caught. We were both trying to untangle how my life blew up without even a warning shot. And some nights, I didn't say a word, just sat there, numb, staring at nothing. I was on this emotional roller coaster I didn't buy a ticket for. Anger, despair, guilt, rinse and repeat. I kept asking myself, what the hell did I miss? Was I too distracted? Too soft? Did I stop making her feel wanted? I replayed every fight, every awkward silence, every cold shoulder like it was security footage from a crime scene. I was desperate to find the trigger. Like if I could just pinpoint the exact second she decided to leave, I could fix it. Spoiler alert, I couldn't. I wasn't eating, barely sleeping. Work went straight to hell. People noticed. They'd ask, "You all right, man?" And I just mumble something about personal stuff. I couldn't bring myself to say it out loud. My wife ghosted me. Eventually, I let a couple of close friends in on what happened. They tried their best, dragged me out for beers, movie nights, anything to keep me from rotting in my own thoughts. But even in those moments, my brain was somewhere else, wondering where she was, wondering who she was with, wondering what the hell was so wrong with me that she'd rather vanish than stay. And then there were the others.
The neighbors, the coworkers, people who didn't know the truth. They'd say crap like, "Still in the honeymoon phase?" Or, "So when are the babies coming?" Every time it felt like someone ripped a bandage off a wound that wasn't healing. And I'd just fake a smile and lie through my teeth. Yeah, everything's great. That lie? It got heavier every damn time I told it. Therapy. That was the only thing that actually helped. I'd never stepped foot in a therapist's office before, but after months of basically existing like a zombie, I knew I was drowning and couldn't pull myself out. So I booked a session, and then another. Talking to someone completely outside of the mess, someone who didn't know Mary, didn't know me, didn't have any history, was a game changer. I let it all out. The rage, the betrayal, the giant black hole she'd carved into my life and just walked away from. I talked about the nights I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything on a loop like my brain was stuck in hell's Netflix. My therapist told me something that shook me. There's no single moment that would have made her stay. She chose to leave. That's on her. At first, that hit like a slap, because for so long, I genuinely believed something was broken in me. That I wasn't enough, that I'd driven her away somehow. But week by week, I started seeing things differently. Mary had been distant for months. Cold, closed off, checked out. And I ignored it. I kept hoping it was just a phase, that things would magically snap back to normal. I thought if I tried hard enough, gave enough, loved enough, I could keep our marriage alive. Turns out, one person can't hold together something two people are supposed to build.
That was a brutal truth to face. But once I did, I started to crawl out of the wreckage. Piece by piece, I began rebuilding. I'd lost so much of myself in that relationship, so much I didn't even notice was missing until she was gone. I used to be the guy who did everything for her. Ran the errands, cooked the meals, made the damn house feel like a home. And now, I had all this time. No clue what to do with it. So I started over. Picked up old hobbies I'd tossed aside. Hit the gym again. Blew the dust off books I never had time to read. Even tried new recipes just to see if I could still enjoy food. Work slowly improved too. At first, I was just faking it, barely getting through the day. But the more I started feeling like myself again, the more I gave a damn. I threw myself into work. It was the one area in my life where I still felt like I had control, like I wasn't just getting swept away by the chaos. I'd always been solid at my job, but now I turned it into my lifeline. Late nights, extra projects, zero distractions. All that focus paid off. I got a promotion, something I never would have pulled off if I'd stayed stuck in self-pity mode. But that didn't mean I stopped hurting. Every now and then, something stupid would punch me in the gut. A photo tucked in a drawer. An old movie ticket from a date night I barely remembered until I saw it again. Little ghosts of a life that no longer existed. I'd stare at them and wonder where the hell she was. Did she ever think about me? Did she regret any of it? But slowly, those moments got quieter. The grief didn't slap as hard. The memories didn't linger as long. I was able to tuck them away faster each time and move forward a little smoother. I even started hanging out with people again, friends I hadn't seen much since tying the knot. We hit the driving range, took random hikes, talked crap over beers. Stuff I hadn't done in years. Felt good.
No drama. No awkwardness. Just people who are there to keep me grounded, not drag me back into the wreckage. And the more I looked back, the clearer it all became. I had poured everything into being Mary's husband, every bit of myself. And when she left, it felt like she took a giant piece of me with her. But piece by piece, I started putting myself back together. It was messy, slow, frustrating as hell, but I was doing it. By the end of that year, I could finally look in the mirror and not see the guy who got abandoned. I saw someone who survived, someone who rebuilt, someone stronger. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like her shadow was looming over every part of my life. I was finally breathing again. And yeah, I was proud of that. I thought I'd close the book on all of it. Thought I was done. Life was starting to feel normal again. Or at least as close to normal as it could after that kind of wreckage. I had a routine. I was hitting the gym, hanging out with friends, crushing it at work. Mary wasn't haunting my every thought anymore. Sure, every now and then something would sneak up on me, a smell, a song, whatever. But it wasn't like before, when her shadow was wrapped around every second of my damn day. Then came that Saturday morning. Knock at the door. Totally chill day. I figured it was a package or one of the guys dropping by early. I opened the door, and there she was. Mary, standing on my porch, holding a baby. My brain glitched. For a full 5 seconds, I just stood there like a statue. It felt like I was looking at a ghost. She looked almost exactly the same. Maybe a little more run down, like life had been chewing her up a bit, but still her. And the wild part?
She smiled, like she expected me to be happy to see her. Like she didn't blow up my entire world and walk away without a damn word. That smile cut deeper than I expected. I thought I was over her. Thought I'd buried all that crap. Turns out, not quite. I didn't say anything at first, just stared, trying to decide if I was dreaming or about to lose my mind. And then she actually had the nerve to say, "Can I come in?" Like this was some casual pop-in. Like she didn't vanish and leave me in emotional ruin. I held it together. Barely. I said, "Nah, you can stay right there and explain." No way I was letting that storm back into my house. The one space I'd finally made peaceful again. She blinked, caught off guard, but didn't argue. Just stood there and launched into whatever speech she'd been rehearsing. "I know this is a shock," she started with this overly hopeful look on her face, "but I wanted to explain everything." She really thought I'd be all ears. And I'll be honest, I almost laughed. Almost slammed the door in her face right then. But I was curious. I needed to hear what kind of twisted fairy tale she'd cooked up to justify walking out of my life. She talked about making a mistake, how she'd realized she threw away the best thing that ever happened to her. Yeah, her words. not mine. Said she'd done a lot of soul searching. That having this baby had made her realize what actually mattered in life. Apparently, what mattered was showing up unannounced years later and pretending none of it ever happened.
Then she looked down at the kid, and with total sincerity, she said, "This is our second chance." I swear to God, I almost lost it. A second chance? Like this baby was some magic reset button. Like we could just rewind and pretend the betrayal, the silence, the pain never existed? I kept my face still, but inside, I was burning. Mary kept talking about how she wanted us to be a family again, how she'd made a huge mistake, but now we could just start over? Just the three of us. Like that baby was an automatic reset. Like none of the wreckage ever happened. I couldn't take it anymore. I looked her dead in the eye and finally asked the question that had been chewing me alive for years. Why did you leave? I kept my tone level, but my insides were screaming. I'd spent countless nights torturing myself with theories, trying to piece together what I did, what I missed, why I wasn't enough. And now she was standing here, in my doorway, and I needed her to say it. At first, she just looked down at her shoes, like she was ashamed. Like maybe, just maybe, she felt some level of guilt. And then she said it. She left me because she wanted a kid, and since I couldn't give her one, she found someone who could. She said it so casually, so matter of fact, like it was no big deal. As if she hadn't ripped my heart out and torched the future we'd built. As if I was just supposed to nod and say, "Oh yeah, sure, totally understand." She went on, said the guy she left me for didn't stick around, but by then she'd already had the baby, and now she wanted me back. Just like that. Like I was some old jacket she tossed aside and suddenly realized she missed. I stood there, trying to make sense of how she thought this would fly. "You left," I said. "You found another man, had his baby, and now you think you can waltz back into my life? Like nothing ever happened?"
She started crying. Of course. Said she was sorry, said it was a massive mistake, said she finally realized I was the one and we were meant to be. It took everything I had not to laugh in her face. Because this wasn't love. This was desperation. And I could see it written all over her. Then came the guilt trip. She started talking about how hard it's been being a single mom, how much she's been struggling, how alone she feels, trying to paint herself as the victim in all this, like she was the one who got abandoned. She said she needed support, that she was ready to make things work this time. And the whole time I just stood there thinking, who the hell does she think I am? I took a breath, looked her straight in the eye, and I said, "You made your choice a long time ago, and now you get to live with it. There's no second chance here." She looked shocked, like the idea of me actually saying no had never crossed her mind. Like she really believed she could disappear for years, pop back into my life when it got hard, and I'd just roll out the damn red carpet because it was convenient for her. And just when I thought maybe, she was about to walk away and leave it at that, she snapped. Her whole vibe shifted. Her voice got sharp, loud, accusing. Suddenly, I was the selfish one. She shouted that I owed her a chance to fix it, that I was being cruel for not letting her try. Then came the threats.
She said that if she'd really wanted to, she could have divorced me back then and taken half of everything. She even had the guts to bring up the house, my house, saying it should still be hers. That's when the mask slipped. Her true colors were right there, loud and proud. And honestly, I felt this wave of peace,
because for the first time, I saw her for who she really was. Not the woman I used to love, not the person I'd cried over for months. Just a stranger standing on my porch, thinking she was entitled to a life she chose to throw away. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just looked her straight in the eye and said, "You chose a different life, and now you've got it. This isn't my problem anymore." And then I shut the door, right in her face. I didn't even care what words were left hanging in her throat. I could hear her muffled yelling on the other side, but I felt calm. She could scream, beg, cry, whatever. I wasn't opening that door again. The woman I married was long gone.
And whoever this was, this entitled, chaotic version of her, she wasn't getting back in. I walked away from that door, feeling lighter than I had in years. But, of course, it didn't end there. I thought I'd slam the door on that chapter for good. But Mary? She started pounding on it like she was trying to break through. Yelling, ranting, throwing a full-blown tantrum outside the one place I had rebuilt from the ashes she left behind. The nerve. At first, I was going to just let her screaming out and walk away, let her throw her fit into the void. But then, curiosity kicked in. What excuse was she going to pull this time? So yeah, I cracked the door, just a sliver, just enough to let her know I was standing there, hearing her, but she wasn't stepping foot inside. The second she saw that little opening, her expression shifted, like she'd just been slapped. She wasn't expecting indifference. She wanted a scene. Instead, she launched into this completely unhinged monologue about how she was willing to forgive me for slamming the door. Yeah, forgive me. She actually stood there talking like we were in the middle of a harmless little lover's spat, not some twisted fallout from her abandoning our marriage to go have another man's kid. The nerve. At first, I was gonna just let her scream it out and walk away. Let her throw her fit into the void. But then, curiosity kicked in. What excuse was she gonna pull this time? So, yeah, I cracked the door, just a sliver. Just enough to let her know I was standing there, hearing her. But she wasn't stepping foot inside. The second she saw that little opening, her expression shifted, like she'd just been slapped. She wasn't expecting indifference. She wanted a scene. Instead, she launched into this completely unhinged monologue about how she was willing to forgive me for slamming the door. Yeah, forgive me. She actually stood there talking like we were in the middle of a harmless little lover's spat, not some twisted fallout from her abandoning our marriage to go have another man's kid. The nerve. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You walked out. You had your chance, Mary, and you burned it. You don't get to snap your fingers and erase that just because it's convenient now." Her face turned bright red. She came back with, "You don't understand how hard it was for me." Started going on about how lost she was after she left, how it took her too long to realize she'd messed up. I wasn't moved. Not one bit. I said, "No, you made a decision. You planned it, lied about it, and carried it through. Your regret now means nothing." That's when she dropped the whole regretful act. Boom. Switch flipped. She started yelling again. Said I was being unfair. Said I didn't even have the decency to give her a real second chance. And then came the real kicker. She said, If I'd wanted to, I could have taken half of everything. I could have ruined you. I just stood there, blinking. She really thought she was doing me a favor by not gutting me financially back then? Like she deserved a frickin' medal for not being as terrible as she could have been. So I said, "Oh wow, so I should be grateful that you only walked out and didn't rob me blind too?" She stared at me, face twisting between rage and something else. Maybe shame, maybe panic. But honestly, I didn't give a damn. Not anymore. All those years I spent blaming myself, thinking I'd failed. They were over. I was done. All the guilt I'd been dragging around for years, the self-blame, the what-ifs, the late-night spiral sessions wondering if I was the one who drove her away, it all evaporated, right then and there, because I finally saw her.
Not the version I'd kept clinging to in my head. The real her. And weirdly enough, it felt like a weight had been yanked off my chest. But of course, Mary wasn't done. She started pacing my porch like a lunatic, ranting about how I'd never find someone like her again, how I'd regret not giving her another shot. She seriously tried to flip the narrative, like I was the fool for not begging her to stay. It was surreal. She was the one who blew up our marriage, ghosted me, had another man's baby, and now she was acting like I should be groveling at her feet. And when she saw I wasn't falling for it, she doubled down, started shouting louder, throwing blame like confetti. She claimed I forced her to leave, said if I had just been more understanding about the whole fertility thing, none of this would have happened. Apparently, me not being able to give her a kid somehow meant I had failed her as a husband, and that, in her twisted logic, made it okay for her to run off and get pregnant with someone else. I stood there stunned by the mental gymnastics. I said, if you wanted a kid that bad, you could have been honest. You didn't have to lie to my face every night and pretend we were good while you planned your exit. She froze, just stared at me like I'd smacked her. But I didn't let her speak. I kept going. You made that call, Mary. You chose that path. Now you get to live with it. Not me. She pulled one last move. Held up the baby like a damn prop, dropped her voice to this fake soft tone, and said, "But what about him? You're being unfair. He deserves better." Like I was supposed to melt and say, "Okay, sure, let's raise your kid together." Nope. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "I don't know that child. He's not mine, and neither are you." That was it. And for the first time since she'd showed up, I saw it in her face. She finally realized I meant every word. I could see it on her face, plain as day. Mary finally understood that I wasn't going to change my mind, that there was no version of this where I let her back in. The fire in her eyes started to fade, replaced by, I don't know, maybe regret. Maybe just the realization that her little plan had crashed and burned. Didn't matter. To me, she was a stranger now. Not the woman I married, not the person I used to dream of building a life with. Just some stranger who thought she could wreck me and still walk through my front door like nothing ever happened. She lingered, stood there on my porch like she was waiting for me to break, waiting for me to call her back in. But I didn't say a word, just stared at her, while it finally sunk in that I meant every single word I'd said. Then, without another glance, I closed the door. And this time, I didn't wait for her to pound on it again, because I knew, deep down,
I knew I'd finally made the call I needed to make, and it was done. I walked away feeling lighter, like I'd won. After all the damage she caused, all the silence, all the nights I spent blaming myself, Mary still thought she could show up, drop a baby in my lap, and manipulate her way back in. But this time, I didn't fold. There wasn't going to be a second chance. Not for her, not for us.
She was just a memory now, one I'd finally laid to rest. After years of guilt, shame, and wondering what the hell went wrong, I could finally breathe. And man, it felt good. That door closing, it wasn't just physical. It was like every ounce of pain I'd been carrying drained out of me. The regret, the self-doubt, the endless questions, they all vanished. I didn't even realize I'd needed closure. But I got it, and I was done. For real. Of course, it didn't stay clean. A few days later, I got a text from her mom, Linda. She apologized, said she was embarrassed by how Mary had handled everything, said she'd tried to talk sense into her daughter, but clearly it hadn't worked. Linda was a good woman. She'd been kind to me after everything went down, made me meals when I couldn't eat, gave me a place to crash when the silence in my own home got too loud. And I could tell this whole thing genuinely broke her heart. But I wasn't about to get pulled back into Mary's mess through her mother. So I sent back a simple reply. Thanks for checking in. And that was it. No explanations, no opening the door back up. Linda didn't need the details. She knew. She understood that it was over. And I appreciated her enough to leave it at that. Over the next few weeks, I started hearing little pieces of the aftermath. Mutual friends, random posts online. Apparently, Mary had crawled back to her parents' place, and it wasn't going great. Drew, the guy she ran off with, the baby's father, gone. Ghosted. Guess he wasn't down for the long haul. Now she was stuck trying to figure out how to raise a kid on her own, back in her childhood bedroom, with a burned-out support system. She'd torched too many bridges, and people weren't exactly lining up to hand her water.
Even her old friends, the ones who'd gone silent when she vanished, wanted no part of her drama now. Can't say I blame them. Her parents weren't thrilled either. They weren't exactly in a place to be funding her do-over. And I definitely knew that, because not long after the text from Linda, I got a call from her dad, Grant. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. He was polite, I'll give him that, but he got straight to the point. Said things were tough, said they were barely getting by, and then, real subtle, started talking about the baby. About how I used to care about Mary and how things were really hard right now. I let him talk, nodded along. But when he started inching toward the ask about how maybe I could help her get back on her feet, I damn near laughed. Not out loud, but inside, I was howling. I told him, calmly and clearly, her choices were her own, and I'm not in a place, mentally or otherwise, to fix them. He didn't push after that. I think he got the message. Then the guilt campaign started. Old friends of hers, people I hadn't heard from in years, started crawling out of the woodwork. A few of them tried the whole sympathy card, said Mary was struggling, that she was going through a lot, and maybe, just maybe, I could find it in my heart to give her another shot. One of them even had the audacity to say, "The kid needs a father figure. Don't let your bitterness ruin that for him."
As if I owed anything to the child she had with someone else. But I didn't waver, not once. I'd spent years feeling like I was never enough,
like I had to twist myself into knots to be the man she needed. And when I gave her everything I had, she still walked. So no, I wasn't going to let anyone make me feel guilty for finally choosing myself. Mary made her choices. Now she had to own them. I wasn't going to be her fallback plan. I wasn't going to carry her consequences. And eventually, they got the message. The calls slowed, the texts stopped, the silence returned. And this time, it felt good. That's when the real peace kicked in. My life got quiet, simple, steady. Not flashy, not dramatic, but mine. I had my routine, my people, my space. And for the first time in years, I felt free. I started enjoying the little stuff again. Walks in the morning, cooking for myself, actually finishing the books I used to leave on the shelf. That kind of freedom, it was addicting. I realized I didn't need anyone's permission to live the way I wanted to. I didn't have to earn happiness through someone else's validation. Piece by piece, I was putting my life back together, on my terms. Every now and then, I'd run into someone who used to know us. They'd give me that look and say, "Hey, whatever happened to Mary?" I'd hear that every now and then. I'd just give a quick, polite answer, nothing dramatic, and move on. Not because I was hiding anything. I just wasn't about to reopen a chapter that was already closed, signed, and shelved. She was the past, and I'd finally figured out how to leave her there. Last I heard, things weren't going too well for her. She was bouncing between jobs, struggling to keep steady work, still hopping from her parents' place to friends' couches until they got tired of playing Lifeline. Every once in a while, someone I barely talked to would hit me up and say, "Hey, Mary's been asking around. She's looking for help." A few even hinted that she still had this fantasy in her head, that I'd eventually come around and decide to step up, play daddy to her kid, maybe even take her back. But that, not a chance. I'd spent too much time clawing my way out of that wreckage to ever even think about going back. I wasn't going to be her soft place to land just because life didn't pan out the way she thought it would. I wasn't her backup plan. I wasn't her safety net. That chapter was finished, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing, that could drag me back into it. In the end, I got what I needed. Closure. She made her bed, and now she's lying in it. As for me, I was finally, fully free. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. The kind of freedom that settles in your chest and stays quiet. Steady. I wasn't chasing happiness in some big Hollywood movie kind of way, but I was content. Truly, peacefully content. And honestly, that's more than enough.